Welcome to the Dream Journal. From the studios of KSQD in Santa Cruz, the Dream Journal is a weekly show where we explore the power of nighttime dreams through conversations with dream experts and with listeners like you.
In the house behind, the life you find is something understood.
A dream can be meaningful even if you don't know what it means.
Time is keenly found. We are not alone. Water over stone, even if you're by yourself.
Today's music, created fresh for the celestial spheres, is called Sidereal Drift. Heliopsychology. Do sunspots, solar flares, and geomagnetic activity affect our dreams? Find out today as our guest, Annani Kelly, presents her PhD research study involving 92 participants and over 4,700 dream reports. I am your host, Catherine Bell of Experiential Dreamwork, and welcome to the Dream Journal. We will be taking call-ins during the last 30 minutes of the show. You can also send us an email anytime at onair@ksqd.org. You've been hearing about the Festival of Dreams, our fabulous dream conference at the Santa Cruz Museum of Art and History, October 10th through 12th. And I want to let you know that early bird pricing is good through Wednesday, September 10th. So now is definitely the time to get your tickets for the Festival of Dreams at festivalofdreams.net. Plus, you can bring a friend and save. So I'm debating. I'm going to share a dream, one of my last dreams I remember about NASA, because as listeners know, I am worked for NASA for 11 years. And I had a dream where I was trying to find my mailbox, at NASA, walking down those institutional hallways over at Moffett Field. And I could not find my mailbox. I guess wouldn't work there anymore. But then I finally found a back office that seemed to have my name on the door, and inside was piles of boxes and old lab equipment. And strangely, in the middle of the room were two fully functional toilets. Used to dream about NASA a lot, but that's the last one that I remember. So I guess I'm flushing that part of me. But I'm really excited to talk to Annani Kelly about her work around heliopsychology and dreams and the solar weather. So Annani Kelly, welcome. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me, and I want to be sure that you can hear me fine.
You sound fabulous. Yep, you're coming through loud and clear. All right.
Yeah. So.
Well, let me read your bio. Let me introduce you a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And then we'll get going. I got a lot of questions for you. So Annani Kelly has a Master of Arts in Transpersonal Psychology and is a PhD candidate with an anticipated graduation date of December 7th. Her research focus is the interplay between space, weather, and consciousness. Her dissertation explores the influence of space, weather on sleep and dream states. So I am definitely excited about this topic. Do we dream more during solar flares, or what about during eclipses? And I'm just so curious about all this. So Annani, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
How's your dissertation going?
Well, I will be doing my defense next month. And for people who are listening that may be members of the IASD, that is the International Association for the Study of Dreams, Dr. Angel Morgan, who was a past president, is actually my chair.
Ah, wonderful.
And so I must also state that Sophia University, which is where my PhD is through, does have a dream studies certification.
Yes.
So if anybody's interested in learning more about dreams,
yes, it's
one of
the few places that we can really get thorough training in how to work with dreams effectively.
So up until my dissertation research, heliopsychology as a branch of study has not existed. What has existed for more than 50 years is the study of space weather on human biology.
Okay.
So there are hundreds and hundreds of studies looking at how space weather affects brain waves, heart rate variability, aggression, homicide, terrorism, you name it, whatever goes on in the human body, it's been looked at. Now, my study itself kind of enhanced a different research study by a researcher named Lipnicki, in which he looked at his dreams specifically, no one else's, just his, and was looking at dream bizarreness and vividity in conjunction with space weather, but he only looked at geomagnetic storms. He did not look at solar flares or sunspots. And maybe at the time that he was doing his study, maybe he didn't know how to look at those different parameters because not a lot of people do understand space weather.
Well, it's interesting. I hadn't realized that the effect of solar activity on health is something that's been studied. And like you mentioned, like crime and brain waves and things like that. And
yes,
that's very interesting. I wonder if you're going to say a little bit about that, or if that ties in with your sleep research.
It does. So, because there's no research psychologically, it's all biological.
Okay.
So my literature review was an extensive look at mortality.
Yeah. Okay.
Longevity. Again, the effects on brain waves. So different researchers have looked at different brain waves. So they've looked at alpha brain waves, theta brain waves, and then heart rate variability in conjunction with solar flaring and geomagnetism. So like the Heart Math Institute, some of your listeners may be familiar with the Heart Math Institute.
I am, yes.
Roland McCready has done research on heart rate variability and meditation in conjunction with geomagnetism.
Okay.
So it's, like I said, it's been studied for decades. And so we know this is happening. Even, and this is another fascinating area of it. So astronauts aboard the International Space Station, they have to have an artificial geomagnetic environment to protect them from solar flaring.
No, what do you mean geomagnetic environment? I mean, I know they have a capsule so they can breathe air and all that, but is there also like a magnetic environment?
Yes, really? Yes, because, on Earth, our magnetosphere, the Earth's magnetosphere, protects us from more of the harmful solar rays, like the UVA and the UVB, and cosmic radiation as well. And on the ISS, they do not have that, so they generate an artificial one.
I didn't know. I didn't even know that. So they have a magnetic field that protects the astronauts.
I didn't know that until I was doing my dissertation research either. So it was very fascinating. And what they discovered was that the artificial geomagnetic environment induces behavioral changes in the astronauts. But the astronauts are not aware this is happening. Okay.
Like what kind of changes?
Emotional and cognitive.
And so, in what direction?
I don't believe the research specified the direction. It just noted that there were changes and that the astronauts were not entirely aware these changes were happening to them.
Interesting.
And this kind of pairs with some of the psychosurgery that was done in the 50s and 60s. So there were some shady psychologists who were doing experiments with direct electrical stimulation of the brain. And when that's done, even though the patients know they're being stimulated, they still believe their behavior is their own.
Okay. Interesting.
So alterations in the space weather environment, including the geomagnetic environment, do cause changes in our bodies and in our minds, but we may not be aware that they're happening. We just think it's our normal day-to-day functioning.
Wow, that's a little creepy, actually. Right?
Yeah, it is. And then, as far as dreams are concerned, besides Lipnicki, there is Stanley Krippner.
Yep.
And Michael Persinger. Michael Persinger has since passed away. Okay. But they did studies on geomagnetism and dream states, but they were looking specifically for extraordinary aspects of dreams. So that would include psychic dreams and telepathic dreams, and whether the geomagnetic environment influenced those in either direction. So what they discovered was that instances of like dream telepathy were inhibited by geomagnetism. However, precognitive dreams you saw more of that during geomagnetism. So something about geomagnetic storming would cause less telepathy, but more precognition.
Okay, interesting. So those are the previous studies. So you kind of set out just to see if you could reproduce that and find more, right? Well,
so my study looked at a lot of different parameters. So I kind of, I didn't just do the extraordinary dreams or like dream bizarreness, although that was included. So my study looked at quality of sleep, nightmare frequency, non-nightmare aggressive dreams, dream bizarreness, and extraordinary dreams. And among the extraordinary dreams, I also isolated lucid dreaming and psychic dreams. And now my chair, Dr. Morgan, she's like, you can't give them the exact results because you haven't done your defense yet. And so what I can say...
what can you say? We'll go with that. Yeah.
What I can say is yes. Now, I did use Pearson correlation, and so I must state, correlation is not causation. However, each one of those parameters was affected in some way by one of the space weather parameters, which were sunspots, solar flares, and geomagnetic storming. And I do have to give a huge shout out to Space Weather Live. They have a website and an app, and their archive data is just wonderful. Everything that they have it comes from NASA, it comes from NOAA, it comes from SDO, but they just put it all together in one nice little package. So it made making sure that my data was correct so much more efficient and fast. So thank you, Space Weather Live, if you're listening, anyone there.
I'll put a link to that on my page so people can track that.
So my study ran from November 11th to January 20th, which I believe was 71 days in total, continuous. And I was fortunate. At first I thought at the beginning, the first couple weeks, not a lot was going on. But then near the end of December, we did have a couple really interesting events. We had some X flares, and then we had the New Year's Eve and the New Year's Day geomagnetic storms. So what I did was, I took sunspot numbers for every day, and I used the highest flare for every day, and I assigned values to the flares, but I began with M flares. I didn't look at C flares or below, just M flares and above.
So tell me about that. Is that different, like strength of the?
Yeah, those are the strength of solar flares. And so for an M1 flare, I gave it a value of 1. An M2 flare, I gave a value of 2. An M3 flare, a value of 3, and so on and so forth. So that I believe, M9 was 9, but an X1 was 10, an X2 was 11, And then geomagnetic storming, I use the KP values. So a KP value of 5 is a geomagnetic storm of 1, or G1.
Okay, well, let's back up a little and talk about what that all means. Just like that, the sun itself has a very powerful magnetic field associated with it.
Yes.
And that these flares are, now tell me what the flares are caused by. They're kind of like tangles in the field. Is that right?
Yeah, so we have sunspots, during the phases of the 11-year solar cycle. So as we near the peak of the solar cycle, even coming down from the peak, we will have sunspots. And depending on their instability or, their stability or lack thereof, then there may be solar flares, and those solar flares are measured by GOES, the geostationary orbital something or other. I can't remember the full name of it.
Okay.
GOES. But so they're measured on a logarithmic scale.
Right. And now the sun is like millions of miles away.
93 million.
Thank you very much. Remember that number. It's 93 million miles away, and so the flare happens on the sun, and you can see the speed of light is very quickly. You can see it right away, but the actual particles from that solar flare don't get to the Earth for quite a while longer, right? It takes a while for the particles to get out here, but you're measuring the actual flares itself.
So the flares themselves, the light of the flares only takes 8 minutes. So if there is a coronal mass ejection, now that's going to take hours or days.
Okay. All
and
right.
it's the coronal mass ejection which may or may not cause a geomagnetic storm on Earth because of its interaction with the Earth's magnetosphere.
Okay, and these are the things that are cause auroras and things like that.
Yes. Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Right.
And the funny thing is, even though when I explained this to some of my dream participants, they still thought I was talking about astrology.
Oh, okay.
I'm like, no, it's not that.
Yeah.
I'm actually looking at space weather.
Right.
So I had my participants rate their dreams on a scale of 1 to 5 for bizarreness, and that was based on Lipnicki's scale that he created for his study.
Okay.
And they sent in a weekly report, and that weekly report included the dreams that they had for every day of the previous week.
Okay.
And then they would say a few words about their dreams, what kind of content they had in them. And so, again, I was looking for nightmares, and I was looking at their quality of sleep. How did you sleep? Did you have insomnia? Were you restless at all? Did you sleep well?
Right, sure.
Also, were you lucid in your dreams? Did you have any extraordinary dreams, any psychic dreams, any dreams of healing, things of that nature? So every week, once again, I had all these reports coming in from individuals. And then at the end of the study, I finally started putting all that data down, and I didn't realize just how many dream reports I had until the final week of it. And I started, counting them all. And I'm like, oh my, this is bigger than I thought it was going to be for some reason.
4,735 dreams is what that's a lot of dreams.
I must have just had a brain fart because I'm an idiot, and for some reason I thought that, it's going to be like a 1-to-1. Everybody's going to give me one dream, forgetting that we have multiple dreams a night. So,
yes.
So, a lot of these dream reports were coming in, and people would have like 5 dreams on a night, 4 dreams on a night. So it really added up. And so for every day, now for the scale, the 1 to 5 scale of dream bizarreness, I did the average for that for every day. And then for every day, the percentage of good sleep, the percentage of nightmares, the percentage of non-nightmare aggressive dreams, the percentage of those who had lucid dreams, the percentage of those who had psychic dreams. So some of the dream parameters were only influenced by solar flares, and some were only influenced by geomagnetism, and some by all the space weather. So So each one did have some relationship to space weather. And some of them, the relationship was stronger. It's a Pearson correlation, and Pearson correlation statistics have strong, moderate, and weak relationships. So some were strong relationships, some were moderate, and some were weak.
So I realize you
But-
can't tell us the actual, details of the
Yeah.
of the research, but can you tell us a little thing about the direction, like even like sleep quality? Was that made? I don't know.
Quality of sleep, there was a relationship with sunspots, and the quality of sleep went down.
When there were more sunspots.
Yes.
Oh, okay, so more activity in the sun or sunspots in particular,
Yeah.
then people
And,
get more restless at night.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
And I noticed, the same thing with different parameters of sleep. Again, with certain parameters of space weather, that solar flares affected some things more than others. Now, psychic dreams
Yeah.
were, I really only saw a relationship with geomagnetism, which seemed to parallel what Persinger and Krippner would see in their research as well. So kind of fascinating that you have, this huge space weather environment, and our dreams are being affected in different ways by these different parameters. Now, there is one thing I do want to add to this. So people may be asking, how could that be? The sun is this far away and we're on Earth, and how could it be doing this? One of the important things that I talk about in my dissertation is that the body produces an electromagnetic field.
Yeah, that's true. We are little batteries.
We are little batteries, and our strongest fields are produced by the heart and the brain.
Ooh, interesting.
And in the 1970s, there was a man named Cohen, and he published some research in Physics Today where he was looking at the variability of our electromagnetic field in conjunction with injury.
Okay.
But one of the things that he talked about in his research was that when we are asleep, our brain's electromagnetic field is stronger.
Huh. Really?
And so one of my theories in my mind is that is one of the reasons why our sleep and dreams are affected by these events, because our electromagnetic field is much stronger during that time when we're sleeping.
So there's kind of an interaction then between the fields of the brain and the magnetic coming from the sun.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
Okay.
And it's not just, that the magnetosphere of the earth that is affecting us, but the sun, the light. We are creatures of the sun. We are made of stardust. Our eyes do, our light filter, and all that energy first comes to our eyes and then goes into our brains, and our brains are processing the light from the sun. Our bodies require the sun, require the energy of the sun for vitamin D, for circadian rhythm, for overall psychological health. We need it. And again, so I want to backtrack. So we have, like I said, all these studies going back 50, 60 years that show without doubt that our bodies are influenced by our space weather and our magnetosphere, by these changes that happen. But psychology has not caught up to that. And when you see that during the solar maximums, that there are more incidences of anger and aggression and hospitalizations and homicide, when you see that this is affecting people, I've noticed even on social media, there's been more chatter in the past 10 years about how people talk about that when there's a lot of solar activity, they tend to feel more anxious. They tend to feel more stressed out. They can feel it in their bodies. So there is a growing concern, or maybe concern's not the right word, but there is it's in the zeitgeist now that people are realizing that this is happening.
So what's going on with the sun right now? I've kind of lost track. Are we anywhere near solar max or solar min, or where are we in the cycle.
I've seen conflicting things about solar maximum.
Right.
I've seen that it was a year or two ago. I've seen that it was this past year. But
I know they won't really know until the amount of the sunspots start decreasing.
Yeah, we won't. And I think part of that confusion is that the solar cycle previous to this one had 2 peaks. It was a double peaker.
Okay.
But speaking of what's going on in the sun, one of my favorite things to say is there's always something going on. The sun's always doing something.
Oh, yeah. It's very active. Yeah.
So I didn't know this until this morning because I woke up and my stomach was a little upset, and I'm feeling kind of anxious myself as we speak. There was a filament eruption on the sun in the shape of an S. And that was on September 4th. The CME should be hitting us on, let me just double check, on the 7th, so that's tomorrow, or possibly late tonight, depending on the speed of the CME. So they are right now expecting a G1 to a G2 class geomagnetic storm. So anybody listening, just kind of pay attention to your dreams for the next couple nights and see what happens.
Well, interesting. Both Max and I had some pretty intense dreams last night. I wonder if we could be like anticipating some of that. Interesting.
Possibly. I mean, because, first that's one thing I couldn't test for during my dissertation was filaments, because I'm not sure if you knew this, but in November, part of the SDO's imagery went down because the server lab flooded.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And without that imagery, I couldn't look for filaments. We don't measure those in the same ways we do solar flares. So I had no visual data to confirm them for that period of time. So that had to be left out.
Because that's when you were collecting data. They didn't have the...
too
bad. Okay. Interesting. So, so watch out. So this is interesting. If we've been near or just past solar max, I wonder if that has something to do with some of the disruptions going on around the world.
I would tend to think so. One of the other things that I talked about in my dissertation was about society as a whole.
Right.
So during periods which are known as grand minimums, which are sustained periods of low activity, which happens throughout history. We do have periods of grand solar minimums.
Right.
One of the famous ones is the Maunder minimum.
Right. That's when the whole Earth became glaciarized, didn't it? No?
Yeah, it tends to correlate with cooler weather.
Oh, okay.
But one of the things that happens in societies that we see during the grand solar minimums is periods of philosophical and spiritual flourishing.
Huh? Oh, okay.
And during the periods of grand solar maximums, we tend to see more wars and more revolutions.
Oh, no. Okay. Oh, darn. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, we got to...
So when you look at like the peaks, every 11-year peak, you will tend to see more social unrest during those peak years.
Wow.
And during the minimum years, you do tend to see more getting along.
Okay. Oh, wow.
And I've noticed that myself, when I go back, when I've just, kind of gone back over the years and like what was happening here and what was happening here. And even in myself, I can go back and trace some of my major health conditions to maximum years. There was the Halloween storm. What year was that? I want to say it was 2003.
I don't know.
During the Halloween solar storm and geomagnetism, I miscarried.
Oh, sorry.
During that, And I had a major illness in high school that was during a solar max year. Mm-hmm. And the whole reason I came to this, it kind of came to me, was I do have temporal lobe epilepsy. And in 2011, one night, I had a very strange cluster of seizures that was unusual for me. And in the day or two following that, while I was resting, I was watching a news report about the geomagnetic storm that had happened, and the next thing I know, I thought, I wonder if in some way, shape, or form, what happened to me was at all correlated with this. So just from then on, that was again 2011. So for 14 years, it has kind of been a hobby.
Right, right. Very personal experience.
A very personal hobby. And I just started researching it, and in 2022, when I had to decide on my master's thesis, I didn't know what to do at all.
No.
And I had another seizure during a geomagnetic storm, kind of hit out of the blue.
Mm-hmm.
I was minding my own business, watching a movie. Next thing I know, I feel bad. And I'm like, oh my God, I feel like this is seizure aura. And I had asked my daughter, could you please just check NOAA and see if there's anything going on, like a, storm, anything. She's like, Mom, we're at G3.
Oh.
I thought, oh.
Which is pretty high, right? I take it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's like a moderately to strong geomagnetic storm. And then I'm like, oh, well, this is what my master's thesis should be about. This is what I have been studying this whole time.
Okay.
And then I had to, kind of narrow down a focus for my PhD. And so it became dreams. And plus, I was part of the dream studies certification, the first cohort to receive that certification. Mm-hmm. And I thought, well, this will just pair nicely with that. Mm-hmm. I have seen so much of it in my own life.
Was that Sophia, the dream studies at Sophia?
Yes, okay. Yes, exactly. Mm-hmm. So, dreams for me are a pivotal part of my life. I mean, they really have guided me in my entire life. And I think that's like an important thing to say during this podcast. It's not just like a scientific endeavor that I'm doing. It's also honoring the journey I have been on as well. So,
right. Well, that's important.
Yeah. I've had precognitive dreams since I was a little girl.
Well, let's talk more about some of these when we get back from the break. I'm trying to tear myself away from the microphone right now. We're already, because I'm just fascinated by this, and just like maybe there's a little bit of hopefulness here that if we can hang on through this solar max, we'll get back to something a little more sane going forward, little less unrest, I'm hoping. So this is Annani Kelley that we're talking to, and this is the Dream Journal. And we're talking about heliopsychology and the way that the space weather affects our dreams. So we are broadcast live from the KSQD studios in Santa Cruz and co-broadcast live in San Jose by KCXU and podcast everywhere. So look for us on all your favorite platforms. We're going to find out more about this and hear about some of maybe Annana's personal dreams if she's comfortable sharing them with us when we get back. And I'm so glad. So we'll be right back. You are listening to the Dream Journal. I am Catherine Bell of Experiential Dreamwork. I'd like to send out a special welcome to our far-flung listeners. We have listeners from all over the U.S. today, so it's a pretty good number here. And then we also have Canada and Warsaw, Poland. So welcome to the Dream Journal. So glad to have you on the air. We do broadcast for free all over the world if you want to tune in at ksqd.org and listen anytime. And this is just evidence that people all over the world are interested in their dreams. If you want to help people learn about dreaming, please follow the Dream Journal on your favorite podcast app and consider leaving a rating or a review, because it does help nudge the algorithm. But most importantly, tell your friends, because the mission of this podcast is to get people talking about dreams. And one way you can do that is by telling them about this podcast. You can follow the Dream Journal at Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And we have upcoming shows and pod drops. Follow hashtag The Dream Journal and at Experiential Dreamwork. Also, please contact me if you'd like to be a guest on the show to talk about a new book or to let folks know about your dream-related offerings. I'm also interested in other topics like consciousness, life, death, psychedelics, all kinds of things that are related to the unconscious and becoming better human beings and just growing and tuning into ourselves. So here's a reminder that early pricing for the Festival of Dreams is good through September 10th. So hopefully you can join us for this local in-person dream conference at the beautiful Santa Cruz Museum of Art and History. Festival of Dreams is October 10th through 12th. And next week, I will have on the show some of the rock stars of the festival, including my co-host, Linda Mastrangelo, also Victoria Rabineau, and Lauren Schneider, and Marilyn Mounsey. So you can learn about their passions and how they got started as dream professionals. I think it should be a lively conversation next week. So, if you are in the Boston area, September 26th and 27th, please consider another IASD regional event, which is near Boston in Bridgewater, Massachusetts. I'll be leading a workshop there about my treasure hunt approach to Dreamwork. Plus, I will be singing, singing, yes, some of my original dream songs. You can find out about both the festival and the Bridgewater Regional at asdreams.org/regionals. So we are here today with the Dream Journal with Annani Kelley talking about heliopsychology, which is the study of how solar weather affects human behavior. And she is just in the process of finishing up a PhD thesis about how solar weather in particular affects dreams. And so we're touching into all kinds of different things. And, Annani, we do have a caller, but I'm going to ask one more. I have one more comment, which is that I am really struck by the fact that these people in the ISS, the International Space Station, did not know when their behavior was being affected by solar effects, by magnetic effects. They assumed they were just acting as they would ordinarily act. And that's just as a reminder, not only about solar weather, but about we don't know the influences that are affecting us. And, we think we have free will, and I think there is free will, and yet there are things that affect us that we just don't know.
Well, and we know so little about the nature of consciousness, generally speaking. So we don't even know where it comes from. There's these arguments of whether it's an emergent property from the brain or if it comes into us,
Or maybe we come from it.
After conception. Yeah,
well,
exactly.
There's the whole...
Is consciousness forming us? We don't even know.
There you go.
And I do want to say, which I did mention before, with the ISS and the astronauts not knowing, it's the same thing that happened when during the 50s and 60s, psychosurgeries, when people's brains were being stimulated. They knew it was being stimulated. They knew parts of their brains were being stimulated directly, and they still thought their behavior was also their own. In fact, one psychosurgery doctor, his name was Jose Delgado, he wrote a book called Physical Control of the Mind. One of his patients was known as saying, "Your electricity is stronger than my will."
Oh, wow.
Right?
That's creepy.
That's a powerful statement and creepy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But again, I do want to express that, this is more than just science for me. This is also a spiritual endeavor. This is also a personal endeavor because of the way my dreams have led me on my life's journey.
Excellent.
Precognitive dreams, the things I have done, the choices I have made are influenced by the information given to me in my dreams. Dreams are so important to our well-being, even for those people who do not recall your dreams, they are still working on you subconsciously.
Absolutely. I'm right there with you, Annani. So we have a caller, Kelly from Santa Cruz, and I want to say hello, Kelly.
Good morning.
Hey, good morning.
I have a couple of questions. They're kind of interrelated.
Perfect.
I was really interested in your the solar activity affecting, or the geomagnetic activity affecting dreams and sleep.
Yeah.
I guess both.
Yep.
I have been diagnosed with central sleep apnea. I don't know if you've heard of that.
Is it
Yes,
is that
I
the
do know what
is
that
that the
is.
same thing that means people need a CPAP machine? Is that the same thing?
Well, that's one of the things, but it turns out that central sleep apnea is different, whereas the brain just decides to shut off the diaphragm.
Oh.
It's not any obstruction in the throat. It's
Really?
just the brain. It's an electrical activity, and there's not a lot understood about it. And one of the things they know is that it happens a lot more during REM cycles, which would be dreaming.
Yeah.
And so I was curious about, I heard the solar and magnetic, which would be another factor to possibly explain what is basically a neurological. There's other ways that it can be affected, but one of the things not understood is why it decides to turn on and off separate from like the carbon dioxide level in your body, which is one of the major triggers. I wondered if she knew anything about correlating apnea with dreams.
That's fascinating. I haven't seen any research on apnea and dreams anywhere. And with my dissertation study, everyone was healthy, no one was on medications, because I wanted to show how this is affecting healthy people, because most of the studies out there do tend to involve people who might be on medications or who might be suffering some sort of illness. Now, that is a great study to do in the future, is to look at people with that same type of apnea in conjunction with that. But there may be some ethical considerations that would be required to be addressed. I'm not sure how that would be done. I could speak with a couple people at my university about ethical considerations for doing similar research. But what I would suggest for you, like, do you know when this is happening? Does something come up? Is there a monitor that shows you that it's happening?
Well, there's two ways to look at it. Number one, when you stop breathing, when you suddenly start again, there's a lurch as your lungs start again, and of course, you're depriving your heart of oxygen, and it causes all kinds of systemic damage to the rest of your body to not have that oxygen over. But the other one is, if you're on a machine, there's a thing called an index, and it basically tells you how many events per hour are happening. So, like, there would be a central sleep apnea index, and there's also obstructive sleep apnea, which is something, blocking your throat. Right. But the central one is the least understood. And I know that their stress is a big factor in central sleep apnea. If you're under a lot of stress, you're going to have more events per hour than if you're not under a lot of stress. Let's say there's a condition called post-arousal state, which means your brain normally during the night, if something startles you or happens, it will stop your breathing for a minute. That's normal. But when you have it stop for more than a minute or two, that's not normal.
Yeah, it's dangerous.
How many days of data does the machine keep?
Oh, it's continuous. The one I have is continuous, and it's hooked up online with my sleep doctor. And
okay. How many days of data do you have currently?
Well, I have 3 years.
Okay, so this could actually work for you, just for yourself. So I had mentioned earlier in the show Space Weather Live. They have a website, spaceweatherlive.com.
Okay.
Spaceweatherlive.com, you can go into their archive and you can look at every day for the past 3 years.
Yeah.
So you can look at solar flares every day for the past 3 years. You can look at the strength of the geomagnetic storming every day for the past 3 years. And so you can look at those days where maybe you had more events or less events, and see for yourself if you can just eyeball a correlation.
Well, that's an interesting idea. It turns out that women have more apnea events during the REM cycles than men, which maybe is a hormone thing. I'm not sure.
It could be. That could be because women's hormones do fluctuate through, the month, through the year. And that is something I do need to say. Not everybody will be affected the same way. There's going to be so many different variables that are going to contribute to how your body responds to space weather. Are you male? Are you female? Are you sick? Are you well? Are you on medications? Are you not on medications? Where are you on the earth, for that matter? So if you live in an area that is on fault lines, or you're near volcanoes, those areas tend to be more magnetically active than, say, the Midwest.
Well, makes sense. Well, like also like the aurora is more active farther north you go, so that's probably more exposed to magnetic fields in the northern.
Exactly. So, like some of my participants that show the strongest relationships to the space weather lived above the 42nd parallel.
That is interesting.
I wanted that's very interesting because of what you said about the geomagnetic hot spots, because that has been correlated by a number of different people with increased psychic activity. And also, a lot of the major, I don't want to call them religions, but spiritual experiences, like take the Indian medicine circles or whatever wheels, they're all located near geomagnetic hotspots, which were also used for dream journeys.
Yes, as a matter of fact, and there is research showing that. So there's like research that came out of Greece actually showing that some of their temples, like many of their temples in fact, are located on these areas that are higher, much higher in that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, you know that where the Earth is, I've heard the magnetic shield around the Earth is contracting. Have you heard that in the last 10 years or so?
Okay, so the Earth's magnetosphere balloons out and contracts normally during the solar cycle.
Okay.
But it is periodically weakening. So it has been weakening over time.
Right.
And then there's also the geomagnetic north is moving, it's wandering. So there are all these different things that are, well, it's a geomagnetic shift as opposed to like a true polar shift. There's the language behind that is curious. Some people believe that our poles, that the Earth will actually flip, but physically speaking, that's not what would take place. What would take place is that the magnetic polarity would flip, which has happened many times throughout Earth's history.
Somebody said that 40,000 years ago it happened. I don't know what the time scale is that we're supposedly due for another one. Would you have a precognitive dream about that?
So
well, I want to interrupt because I have a lot of excitement going on in the studio. We have a couple of questions that are coming up for folks here.
Let me just finish.
Yeah, please.
This one
go ahead.
Last thing. So the event that happened 40,000 years ago is known as the La Chambre excursion, and it was regional, not global.
Oh, good.
So it only affected a small area, and it was mostly in Europe, which actually coincides with an explosion of cave paintings. So I'll leave you with that. So.
That's interesting.
Thank you, bud.
Okay, Kelly, thank you so much. So Rick had something he wanted to ask. Is it involving Kelly, or should we let Kelly go? Let's see. Here you go. Oh, all right. Thanks, Kelly. Bye now.
Hi, I have a question. Do we have any information about the Fatima event? This is when 3 young girls saw the Virgin Mary, and many more people came to witness this, and there were sightings of UFOs coming down from the sun. Was there any correlation for that event with the sunspots or sun activity?
Okay, so I am aware of the Fatima event, but let me just take a look at something real quick. So that happened in 1917, and that would be very difficult to determine the strength of the geomagnetic field at that time.
Okay.
So most of the data that we have, as far as like good data for geomagnetic storming, only goes back a few decades.
Okay. Well, thank you. Though it does make you start to think about history and like what periods of unrest and quiescence and peacefulness.
We can kind of guess at sunspots at the time, but the numbers are not as exact as they are now.
Okay. All right. Now we have a question from Max. So.
Okay, you really brought a lot of questions up in my mind. The first one you already answered, which is there an archive where we could go back and look at the different space weather events that have happened, and then
Yes.
compare them maybe against an old dream journal or something.
Right.
The other one is there any correlation that you've heard of with power lines, living underneath power lines?
Well, yes. So are you familiar with the Carrington event?
No, I'm not.
Okay, well, let me tell you.
Please do.
So the Carrington event is named after the scientist who witnessed it. I want to say his first name was Richard. I'm really bad with names, so I could be wrong. We're just going to say Carrington. The
Okay.
scientist named Carrington
Sure.
was watching some sunspots on the sun in 1859, and lo and behold, there were some massive solar flares that triggered what is known as the Carrington event, which was a huge geomagnetic storm in which the aurora was seen as far south as the equator.
Oh, wow.
Now, again, this was 1859. There wasn't a whole lot of technology, but in some cases, telegraph operators had to unplug from their battery power source and were said to run on aurora power. And the reason why this happens is because when there's a huge geomagnetic storm, in some cases, what we see is induced current in the ground, which can then affect all the electricity in the power lines everywhere. So there was a similar but weaker event in the 80s, and that caused the Quebec blackout.
Oh, I remember this.
So, and there's been a few since then where there's been grid problems following or during
Okay,
geomagnetic
Annani,
storming.
we seem to have woken up a whole can of worms here, because now what about like our cell phones and cell phone towers? Like, I mean, if this electricity is affecting us.
So
Phew.
governments around the world do know that a strong enough solar flare, a strong enough one, can just cripple grids and cripple electronics. They know this can happen.
Right, but what about the electricity coming from those grids? Is that affecting us as human beings in our behavior?
Because
I would assume so, because they're amplified.
Right.
And then so you have an amplification of the artificial electromagnetic fields produced by these objects.
Well, we'd have to get data to figure out the strength of these different fields, because I don't know offhand how those things compare. But Max, one last thing, and then we're going to have to say goodbye, because I have the people outside are ready to come in. Max, do you have one last thing you want to say?
no, I don't.
Okay. Well, then, Annani, thank you so much. This has been a very lively conversation, and congratulations on your thesis. I'm sure your defense will go really well. It's been wonderful to have you on the show, talking about the heliopsychology, and then skating off into all kinds of things that have to do with electricity and magnetism.
Yeah.
And
we are creatures of magnetism.
We
Our
are,
bodies
because
are
there's
electric,
electricity
so,
in the body. So do you have any last encouragements you want to give our listeners? Suggestions?
Yes, I do. For people who have precognitive dreams and you don't know what to do or how to feel about them, feel blessed by them, because they can lead you in the right direction. They led me in the right direction.
Right.
Trust the wisdom of your dreams. It is there for a reason.
Oh.
It helps to guide you. It helps to heal you. It is part of your connection to everyone else and to the universe as a whole.
Beautiful.
I mean, we are really given this gift, and we should embrace it more, I think.
Thank you.
And I want to say thank you for having me on.
Yes.
I am very honored.
Great.
Thank you so much.
Well, congratulations on your thesis and all, and maybe we'll have you come back when it's all done, so we can hear some more of the
I would love
data.
to.
But this has been a lively conversation, and take care. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye now. So thank you all for listening. The Dream Journal is produced at the studios of KSQD in Santa Cruz. We are live every Saturday at 10 a.m. Pacific at ksqd.org. The podcast is released on the Monday after the show. It spreads interest in dreaming when you subscribe, rate, and review. I am Catherine Bell. You can find out about my dream coaching practice at experientialdreamwork.com. Email me at catherine@ksqd.org, KATHERINE. Follow Experiential Dreamwork and hashtag The Dream Journal on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn to keep up with the shows. I'd like to thank Rick Cleffel, engineer and music creator, for this particularly spacey music today, very much out in space. Audio editing by Suki Wessling. Phones by Eric Nelson. Intro and outro pieces are both by Mood Science. And tomorrow morning, when you wake up, take a minute to write down your dream and bring it to the next Dream Journal.